Good morning, everybody, on this quite dull and dreary Tuesday morning. But I've got Tom Davenport and Andrew Lavelle, who are the MDs for Elvius. And I'm going to hand over to Tom in a second, which I love this part of doing a webinar in this way, because I don't have to do any of the heavy lifting. I literally can just hand over to Tom and Andrew to do their thing. So delighted that you could both join us. And this is very much a topic that is everywhere and everyone's talking about it. It's the hype at this moment in time. And Tom, what I love about you is you always bring it back to kind of reality and make things make sense. And I'm hoping that by running this session for us today, we'll be able to just give us a real glimpse into actually how properly to use it, how we can use it to our advantage, but also, as you've already said, it's not flawless by any means. But I'm going to hand over to Tom Davenport from Elvius now. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Mel. Great. Okay, so I'm keen that we should run this session in a relatively informal way. So I don't know what the format is. Mel, are people allowed to sort of speak or ask questions, or how's?
We tend to ask them not to speak because it would just be a jumble mess. So if they have any questions as we go, they can just pop it in the chat. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Pick it up from there.
Please do that. And I'm very conscious that there will be a variety of levels of sort of knowledge and experience when it comes to AI amongst you all. So we'll try and we'll pitch it in a way that I think is hopefully beneficial to everyone here. As Mel says, this is our kind of central thesis at Alvius on AI, is that whilst the chatter would imply that everyone's using it, we're pretty confident that people are not. That there's a lot of people who are using it a lot and benefiting from it massively. But there's also a huge swathe of people in the workforce at every level who are not, who are baffled by it, who are slightly scared by it. And we're here to kind of talk with that assumption in mind. So as I say, it may be that some of you use ChatGPT every day, but my guess is that a number of you absolutely don't. And perhaps haven't used it at all, and that's absolutely fine, and that's what we kind of want to talk about, and indeed demonstrate to you. So that's our starting point. I mean, just I know that this is very much focused on AI tools. Just very briefly on the subject of Alvius, our kind of philosophy is that AI should be in the background. So we're a VMS and talent pooling software company. In general, we are very pro AI, but we're very pro it happening behind the scenes, so that you're using it without knowing you're using it, so that your experience is better without knowing that it's better. But today we're going to talk about tools that you can actually use directly, tools that are on the internet and available to you, either free or very low cost, that can improve your day-to-day working. So without further ado, I think I should hand over to Andrew, who is going to share his screen and take you through surely the most famous of all AI tools out there at the moment, which is ChatGPT.
Tom, before I do that, I'm just going to try and set the scene a little bit. Obviously, this is meant to be practical rather than theoretical, but I think that the aim, for today is that you will come away with the right sort of mindset to try and understand which of your day-to-day activities might be helped by using AI. So I think actually having an understanding of what the breakthroughs are and what has changed in the market over the last couple of years is actually very helpful to try and kind of understand, what day-to-day activities you might find that you can actually sort of outsource to a sort of AI tool. Because obviously everyone's day-to-day is different, but the sort of categories of work are probably similar. And so as we show examples today, I think the thing to bear in mind is not, okay, do I do that specific thing? But it's, okay, well, actually, yes, I don't do that specific thing, but I can see there's a category that is similar to that I do. And therefore, maybe that's something I can automate through ChatGPT. So just very briefly then, what has actually changed over the last couple of years? Like, why are people talking about it now versus a few years ago? Because most people's experience with an AI assistant was probably first something like Siri or Alexa. And Siri came out in the sort of early 2010s, and everyone was excited and got it on their iPhones and was using it. But fundamentally, all that was doing was understanding your speech and translating that into commands. Now, those commands were pre-programmed. So if you ask Siri what the cricket score was, and Siri had been told what the information was, Siri would be able to tell you. But if Siri hadn't been told about baseball scores, say, then Siri wouldn't know the answer to that. So it was very much, you could ask in lots of different ways, but either Siri knew the answer or they didn't know the answer. And you've probably had that experience with Siri, or you have a Alexa, Echo Hub or something like that. You probably had that experience where it just doesn't know the answer. And so those sort of first models were fundamentally all about text to or speech to text, and then turning those into commands that were all basically a massive library of commands that you could do. What's the weather like? Turn that light on, etc., etc. So the change over the last couple of years in the technologies that we all now have available to us is that not only can these models take very unstructured data, so things like speech, images, video, things like that, but it can produce novel, human-like output. So novel, i.e. no one has ever come up with it before, it didn't tell the model to do it, and human-like, i.e. it's in natural language, images, audio, things like that. So that is the real change. So whereas before you were getting rote responses, you are now getting genuinely novel content that the system has generated specifically for the thing you are asking it to do. And that opens up whole new possibilities. So I'll start to sort of share my screen and we'll sort of step through a few examples of sort of what that means in practice. So I'll share my screen and let's just flick over to ChatGPT. So this is it. So for those of you who haven't actually seen it before, it just looks like a prompt. It looks like you're messaging someone, and you can ask it anything. Now, the problem is that anything is anything. And
Andrew, sorry, very briefly, just for total clarity, this is a website which you could get to via typing ChatGPT into Google, right?
Yes.
It's
yeah. So basic level, you can go. There's a free version, there's a paid version. The free version gives you access to a pretty powerful ChatGPT. The paid one gives you access to an even more powerful one. We're using the more powerful one for the demo, but yeah, it's basically either free or this version is about £15 a month. So yeah, that's how you access it. Now the problem is you can ask it literally anything, and that often is like the point where it's like, okay, well, what is anything? Like, what actually can I use this for? The best metaphor I think I've come across for it is, imagine you've got an infinite amount of interns. So they're not necessarily like the leading experts in their field. They're interns. They're enthusiastic. They're willing to give it a go, and they'll probably get 80% of the way there. So it's not going to be perfect, but it's gonna do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So you can just ask it a sort of regular question. So you could just say, like, what is IR35, right? And it's going to give you an answer to that. Now, say you didn't know what IR35 was, this is probably a pretty good explanation of what it is. It might be a little bit wordy, but it gives you a pretty good sense of the main points of what IR35 might be. But that's an example of just it's been trained on a huge amount of data, and it is coming up with an answer to a sort of very basic question. Now, you might sort of start with this and you go, okay, well, this is fine, but I could kind of just Google this. We could take it a step further and say, okay, take this information. So take that and turn it into a tweet, right? And now it's going to turn this into a shorter sort of tweet, and you see it's applying some hashtags there and things like that, right? So it's manipulating the text and it's turning it into something that might be more useful. So again, you think of this mental model of infinite interns, right? You've got an intern, you ask them to look up what IR35 is, and you say, okay, actually, I want to tweet about this today. Can you just come up with a tweet? Now, you might like this tweet, you might not. You can edit it, you can maybe finesse it a little bit, more of your sort of tone of voice, whatever it might be. but it's giving you that starting point. I think so much with ChatGPT, it's like you're not starting with a blank canvas. You know, there's nothing worse than opening up a Word document and you've got this really big task to do and you just don't know where to start, right? Like, you know, you're let's go to like the next example. I think this is quite a good example of that, right? You've started a blog, right? And I'm just going to copy and paste the prompt that I wrote. You know, I'm writing a blog about VMS software for contingent hiring in the UK manufacturing industry, right? And I'm like, I don't know where to start. What am I going to post? And again, ChatGPT comes up with some ideas. So here's some blog post ideas. Now, you might not like some of these, they might seem obvious to you, but you're not starting from a blank canvas. You're not starting from, I just don't know where to start. And it's going to trigger something. You might think it's a good idea, you might think it's a bad idea, but it's that sort of sounding board. It's that, again, that sort of intern metaphor of like, just give me something that I can review and I can think about and will prompt more ideas, right? And you know, these ideas are pretty good, right? It's talking about R35, it's talking about cost benefit analysis, integrating VMSs with existing HR systems. You know, these are all very, you know, sensible ideas for a blog. And you can take it further and further, right? You can get ChatGPT to write the whole blog post for you, or at the very least, write an outline of this blog post and get someone else to write it, right? So it's helping you sort of kind of workshop ideas and almost like bouncing ideas off it in a way that you can do with a person, but you can also now do with ChatGPT. I'll just do one other one to give you an example of like, you know, when you might be faced with like a bit of a blank canvas problem. So let's say you're doing like a team offsite and you're just like, right, okay, I've got to do the itinerary, but I just don't know where to start with it. And I just don't know. I just need some ideas. So here's another prompt. You know, this is like an offsite for a sales team, medium-sized software company, just like give me an itinerary for the day. Again, ChatGPT is going to come up with an itinerary. And, you know, there's a breakfast, there's a opening session, you know, list of activities, you know, and this is customized to what you say. You can be as specific as you like. You can write huge amounts of detail in the prompt. You could give it, you know, your company website. You could give it all sorts of information about maybe what your, you know, sales targets are, or whatever it might be, and it'll become more and more personalized. This is still quite a vague prompt, really, but you can see it's giving you a whole itinerary. And it's obviously, as we all know, so much easier to iterate on something that does exist than to start from something that doesn't exist. And you know, I think it's a really powerful way of using ChatGPT. Is just that sort of creative process. So, you know, we've got these blog posts, we've got this tweet, we've got this offsite itinerary. I could maybe then say, okay, craft me an email that I can send to the team about this offsite that gets them excited about it. This would summarize the, you know, it would summarize this itinerary for me. You know, it's that sort of content creation, that sort of day-to-day content creation that goes on in most businesses. It's so useful to be able to get 80–90% of the way there for it. But another thing it's really good at is sort of summarization. So and just like reading through large amounts of data. So I've got a couple of files that I'm going to upload. So I've got one here, which is a very long document about AWR, right? I think it's like over, I guess, like 70–80 pages or whatever. And it's from the government, AWR regulations 2010, right? So I'm going to attach that. And then I'm going to ask a question of it. So I'm going to say, you know, how is AWR applied to workers who are pregnant? Right? See if this document has anything about that. And it's going to read the document. So it uploads the document, it reads the document, it's going to read through all 80 pages, and it's going to try and answer the question. So it's currently reading the document. And let's see what it comes back with.
I should just jump in here. Just in terms of the difference between ChatGPT 3, which is the one that if you go to Google right now and type in ChatGPT and then you enter your email and you get access to it, and ChatGPT 4, which is what you're seeing here, which is the one that's £15 a month. GPT-3 doesn't allow this kind of thing. So the upload of documents is a big feature that is very helpful on 4.
Yeah.
for that extra £15, which I have no stake in OpenAI, unfortunately, but I think that's almost for anyone, that's money worth spending.
Yes. So yeah, uploading documents is really helpful. You can also point it to websites, which is also really helpful. So yeah, there's more like flexibility in terms of like what you can prompt it with. But you can see here, it's read through this document and it's come back with 3 points around specific provisions for pregnant workers and new mothers in the AWR regulations, right? So you could have read through that document. You probably could have done a Command F on it, maybe found the word pregnant. But maybe it didn't. Maybe it wasn't that simple, and maybe you would just give this to like an intern to do, again using this analogy, and they come back and they summarize this for you. And so this sort of ability to kind of crunch through huge amounts of data and come back with an answer is really sort of super helpful. And I'll just do one more example of something like this. So this is a job description. So here we've got this, I've just taken this from the Tower Hamlets website. This is a pretty typical like public sector job spec. It's like, I think about 10 pages long, and it just describes, a job title, right? So I'll add that again. And I'm going to say, like, let's like summarize. Well, let's say like, what are the mandatory requirements for this role, right? Like, well, the mandatory, like we'll say like hard requirements for this one. Right. And the same thing happens, that uploads the document, it's going to read it, and it's going to come back with some bullet points. And this obviously this is something that you can do, but if you're doing lots of this every day, and again, you might not be doing this specific task, but probably everyone has got to look through large amounts of data at some point, long documents, long emails, whatever it might be. And this can just really be so helpful just to sort of kind of cut through the noise that I think everyone experiences with all the information and data that's out there. So you can see here, it's got a load of information. That might be too much. We could ask it to be pithier and shorter or whatever it might be. Or we could do something else where we go in the opposite direction, where we start off with a small amount of information and we want it to create a whole job description. So let's just end with this prompt, which is writing a job description for the role of a junior marketing associate. Again, we've all been there. You might be hiring someone and you've got a blank canvas. Like, I don't have a job description to hand. I might need to create one. What do I write? Well, here's a prompt, and ChatGPT is going to come up with a job description for me, which I can obviously wordsmith and kind of customize a bit more. But perfectly good job description. Could quite easily pop that on a job board and start getting applicants, really, really quick. This would have taken me, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour to write. So I've got half an hour back in my day because I've got this right in front of me. And, it's really good. And I could change the tone. I could say, make it more informal, make it more formal, whatever it is. It's really good at crafting that sort of those sort of information. So that is that's that. Tom, I don't know if there are any questions in the chat. Just if there are, just obviously I can't see it at the moment, so do just let me know.
The number of people here is growing, which is very encouraging.
Excellent, very good.
Welcome if it was
going the opposite direction.
when it comes to my, that will happen.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to those who've joined.
I can't now. Are there any? I don't think I can see any questions, but I might not have total access. I assume there are not at this stage.
No, there's no questions at the moment. As soon as one comes up, I will let you know.
Marvelous.
All right. So I think that's sort of probably enough on the sort of the tech side. Hopefully that gives people a sense of what that looks like, you're sort of very practically in terms of the day-to-day tasks. So just to sort of summarize, what we're talking about here, it's this idea of you are getting 80-90% of the way there with some sort of text-heavy task that you may have otherwise had to just do manually yourself, or at the very least getting like someone else in your team to do it. And instead you can get ChatGPT to do it almost instantly. And you might be thinking about some sort of like brainstorming task where there's like a question that doesn't have a wrong answer, and it has a wide range of possible right answers. So, brainstorming questions you might want to ask in an interview, or icebreaker questions for an offsite, or blog post ideas, or whatever it might be, like things like that. It's really, really good to just sort of generate ideas and to sort of go back and forth with it to try and hone in on what you're after. And then I guess the second category would be actually generating like long form text for you. So we've seen this just now with a job description, but that could be like an email you might be sending, circulating as like a newsletter or something like that. And then the final one is taking large amounts of text and summarizing it or transforming it, so taking a really long job description and turning it into a tweet, or turning a long piece of like government legislation and actually just summarizing the really key points for you, or giving you a checklist of things you might want to bear in mind. Now, obviously, the caveat with all of this is like it might get it wrong, like it's not perfect. But then again, humans aren't perfect, right? And if you're getting an intern to do it, it's not going to be perfect. They might make mistakes. So, we're not saying that, you don't need lawyers or you don't need accountants or whatever it might be. You don't need specialists in their field. Of course you do. But when there's times when you're not going to be going to those specialists for whatever reason, and you just need a quick answer to it, the answer that ChatGPT gives you is probably pretty similar to the answer that you would have got if you just read the document yourself and summarized it. Like, it's pretty good at doing those sort of core tasks. So that is ChatGPT. So OpenAI produce other tools, and one of them is called DALL-E. So I'm just going
Andrew, just on that point,
yes.
One of our members has asked, they've been advised to use Claude.ai over ChatGPT 4. What you and obviously you're just about to go on to the different ones available. So what is your view on the difference in terms of, because it's like anything, once there's an explosion of the different options, then you've got to then choose which platform's right for you. How do you make that decision?
Yeah, so Claude is from a company called Anthropic, and they are it's quite focused on the sort of AI safety aspects of it. I think that ChatGPT, was released in a sort of like, here you go, world, let's see how it goes sort of thing. It wasn't released in a way that was like, this is a very carefully designed tool that is designed to like it's designed to avoid doing anything sort of particularly offensive, but Anthropic and Claude in particular is designed to be very careful about its output, and there are, I think, more layers of protection in place to ensure sort of like brand integrity and things like that. Fundamentally, they are all operating at exactly the same model. Effectively, they're ingesting a huge amount of data, like unimaginably large amounts of data. Like, we're talking, I don't know, like 10, 20 British libraries, like size is worth of data. So they are fundamentally doing the same thing. But what I think we'll find is that there will be certain tools that will be more honed to like more specific use cases. So Claude and Anthropic, I think, are more focused on maybe like a chatbot example. So maybe if it's used as like answering customer questions, trying to make sure that you can't sort of trick it into responding in a way that might be offensive or something like that. Whereas ChatGPT, I think, is more of a sort of general purpose tool that's not trained in a specific way. So I think that may be the difference. But we have experimented with using Claude internally, and it's a very good tool as well. And I think it is recently more available to the general public. So yeah, it's definitely worth just trying as well, because you might find that certain tools are better for certain use cases. We've certainly, tried to experiment. You can try ChatGPT, but you can also just, Google Claude, Claude.ai. I don't know if we have show notes or whatever it might be, but I'm sure we can include links and stuff. But Claude.ai, you could just go in and you can start speaking to Claude, which is this sort of a newcomer in the sort of ChatGPT space, but they're all the same effectively. So I'm just going to go on to DALL-E, which is a little bit different, because DALL-E is from OpenAI, sorry, but this is about image generation. Now, this is perhaps a slightly more narrow use case, but it's an interesting one nonetheless. So I think the main use case I can see for a sort of general purpose audience around DALL-E is creating images for the purpose of social media. So let's say that we are writing a blog post about retaining or improving diversity in the recruitment process. So I've got a prompt here. So generate an abstract illustration to be used as the header image for a LinkedIn post about how to use data to improve diversity in your recruitment process. So this one takes a little bit longer, but it's exactly the same process where you've got a really large model which is generating, rather than text, it's generating an image. I think this, to be honest, seems even more magical than the text side of things. The fact that it's actually generating an image feels even more sort of unbelievable in a way. But this is what it can do. So DALL-E, again, is something that you get if you subscribe to the ChatGPT Plus package. But we can see here, I mean, truly amazing in a way. This is a completely unique image. This is not like they've not gone on Google Images and found an image for you. This is a generated image, and you could use this in your LinkedIn, or your Twitter post, and it's completely unique. So it's as if you'd paid a graphic designer to go away and come up with this image. And I think in some ways it's artistic. It conveys what we want to convey: data, AI, diversity, and you can just go ahead and use this. And it's got another version here. Maybe you prefer this version, but I probably would go with this one. And it's sort of amazing, really, that you can do this, and it just really enriches the content that you're able to share online. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting tool for that sort of thing. So that's DALL-E. And then just as a way of teeing up what Tom's going to talk about, what you will find is there are loads of tools out there which effectively sit on top of things like ChatGPT. It may be like a specific tool to help you write better sales emails or better marketing emails or better marketing content or whatever. It's really easy to Google these. You could basically just type in some sort of a use case like marketing emails and then AI, and you'll find a bunch of these. They're all pretty similar. Really what they're doing is using this same underlying technology, but they are adding prompts to it. So they're using their domain expertise to give ChatGPT a bit more of a helping hand or a bit more direction. So if I was an expert in SEO, I might have 10, 20 tips and tricks that I would always use when it comes to like writing blog posts that are SEO optimized. What they will do is they will teach ChatGPT those tricks, and then they will turn that into a product. So they can be actually really helpful if you don't really want this like blank screen that you have with ChatGPT and with DALL-E. It can be a really useful like interface on top of it. So if you think, oh, actually, yeah, I can really see there being a use case in improving my sales emails, say, just Google sales emails, AI or ChatGPT, and you will come up with loads of tools. They're all really good. They're all really useful. And you can then just have that as part of your workflow. So yeah, that's sort of teeing up Tom. So
and
I will
Andrew, one
Yes.
other point. Did I hear you right? You said DALL-E is part of ChatGPT 4
Yes.
if you subscribe. So you can get ChatGPT 4, I'm not even saying that correctly, in DALL-E for £15 a month. And
Yes.
and is it then because I don't know about everybody else, I'm very familiar with the format of having LinkedIn licenses and things that are done for companies as opposed to individual. But I assume if you're working for a company, you would pay £15 per person for access per head. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm sure. I mean, as Tom said, like we're not here to sort of represent OpenAI, but I'm sure there are company-wide licenses that they are doing. And I know that, for example, Microsoft is investing very heavily in this. They've had a big partnership with OpenAI, and I think they're calling it Copilot now. But Microsoft Copilot is coming to Microsoft Office. So it's quite likely that if you are in a company that use Microsoft Office, you will soon be getting access to Copilot, which will be similar to this, basically. So there are different ways to kind of get access to it. Google has got their own version called Bard. But I think the main point I would stress is like, don't worry too much about which of these versions you end up using, because they all fundamentally work in the same way. I think the most important thing, obviously getting access to it is important, but if your company is using Copilot and you don't feel like you need to use ChatGPT to do things like this, you can just use Copilot. Or if your company has got access to Bard or something, or Claude, then you can just go ahead and use that, and you'll have the same sort of results. Yeah, awesome. Right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand over to Tom, who's going to talk about some other tools that exist.
Right. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, now we've got just over 10 minutes left, so I'll do this fairly quickly, and I won't deep dive remotely, but I'm just going to very briefly show you a couple of things. And I hope you can see my screen now. Andrew, is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so talking of this category of publicly available AI technology, which is often built on top of models that exist elsewhere, I'm just going to show you two, and this is beautiful.ai and v.io. This is a slide presentation, or a slides generation software, beautiful, and Veed is a music generation AI. But these and so many others are found very, very simply by Googling slides AI, or slide text to slide generation AI, that kind of thing. And I really encourage you to try and remove the mystique from all of this. Just to do that, to play with this kind of stuff, just imagine various uses that might be helpful to you. Google it, have a look. There's nearly always a free account you can create, or not, as in this case, you don't even have to create an account. You can just do it from the landing page, and just see if it's something that's useful to you. And I think this is a point where it's worth reiterating what Andrew said about the imperfection of these tools, and why it's so important to understand what their limitations are and flaws, and where you can trust and where you can't trust. You will see in what I will attempt now. I'm pretty confident that some of the results will be suboptimal, but they will at least be a starting point for work. Once I've been through this, I will also download the meeting notes from this discussion, which may well throw up some quite interesting inconsistencies with what we've actually discussed. So that's just a topic worth bearing in mind. Right. So beautiful AI. Here's the prompt line here. I created this slide just 10 minutes before the call started by entering a prompt. But let's say we would like to have a slide to summarize a call between leaders in the staffing sector about the future of AI in their industry. There we are. And then press enter. And that is now generating a slide, just one slide on this topic. And this is really just a sort of demo that beautiful.ai give you on their landing page. So the future of AI in staffing, and it's pulled out 3 points here with 3 little images: growing demand for AI in staffing, need for automation and efficiency in the hiring process. AI can screen resumes, so it's pulled that out, without me having given that prompt. It just sort of comes to that conclusion itself. Algorithms can quickly filter resumes for keywords, and then challenges remain. Bias and ethics concerns about AI need to be addressed, which I think we all agree with. And then at the bottom, while AI has potential in staffing, leaders must thoughtfully implement it. So it's sort of what we've been saying now, but without having said that so directly. So beautiful AI, there's lots of others. There's slides.io, I think, and there's a number of others, can generate this kind of stuff very, very quickly, and then you can get much more advanced. Obviously, this is one slide, but it could be a whole deck of 30 slides. You can interact with the AI, so you can say this bit's good, but I want more of that. You can define the branding, the colors that you want, and so on. There's a whole way you can go. So that is one user case, and actually I think that's a better result than I was expecting. That's quite a good output. V.io, this is one of a number of tools. I think this will have less utility for you guys on this call, unless you have you like creating videos and need music for those. But the music generation scene is one that Google's recently waded into, and here I can just quite simply select my genre. So let's say I want to go with hip hop, and then I want an energetic winter's morning, and I create the track. Now I don't know if this is gonna. I suspect this you won't be able to hear this when I click go, but you can just you can all try this separately and have a play around. Again, this is just the landing page, no login needed at all. That's why I chose these two, because you could do it literally right from the landing page. So if I click this, Andrew, can you hear that?
Unfortunately not.
No. Okay, fine. So I won't bother. But it's well, it's from what I heard, it was certainly
Tom
energetic.
said, can you sing it? This has been a request for
1 second.
Tom
Tom
Brown, Brown, you definitely don't want Tom Davenport singing it. Let me tell you.
Given Tom chose hip hop, I think especially maybe.
Yeah.
Not Tom's
Exactly.
Well, I can
one
confirm
thing, Tom,
it's energetic. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing we on this. Can you add, not in this particular one, the one prior, can you add a slide deck for it to then redesign it?
Yes, so there was one that I was testing yesterday actually, where you can add an existing deck, or you can add a template. So you can add a format that it can work from, or an existing deck. It can redesign it. I mean, it's the one that I tried yesterday wasn't anything like as mind-blowingly impressive as ChatGPT, actually, I have to say. It was fine, it was good, but it was more a case of generating the baseline that you can then refine. But yeah, that is absolutely possible. Yeah, it's there. I think that's probably an area that's yet to be growth in.
Bob, do you want to stop sharing, by the way? Because I think it's just a very large.
Oh, it's just a picture of you, right? Sorry. Well, there's been a question that's come in. What I'm going to do very briefly is come off the call for a particular reason, because I need to tell the AI that I'm using that's recording this call that I've left the call, so it will generate the notes for it. Andrew, if I could leave it to you to answer the question that I think has just come in, that would be great.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So yeah, in terms of the question from Tracy, in terms of free version of Beautiful AI, I think with most of these tools, there'll certainly be a free trial. I think free versions are often relatively few and far between, because the underlying technology is still, I guess, sort of quite expensive. So typically you won't find as many free tools. There are some out there, but often things like Beautiful AI are relatively inexpensive. So I'd have to get back to you on specific free versions. But yeah, there's a real proliferation of these tools out there. So chances are that there will be something, but certainly there'll be free trials.
I guess where the costs add up, Andrew, is if you have lots of different if you say, well, I want to have access to that, I want to have access to that,
yes.
yada yada, they all add up. Then it's a significant cost. When Tom said it was you said it was £15 a month for, everyone goes, oh, £15 a month. Yeah, that's not so bad. I think is the more tools you add.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say that you can get 90% of the way there by just trying to integrate ChatGPT into your day-to-day workflow. That's what I say to all of our team. I say just try and use it. Just try and set yourself a goal to use it, once a day, and just see if you can do that. And then, if it's working well, then up it. But just try and sort of get yourself to use it, because once it becomes a habit, I mean, I work in a more sort of technical area, so I do end up using it quite a lot. But genuinely, I use it 2 or 3 times a day now. And if I didn't have access to it, I would be way less productive than I am. So I would say ChatGPT, start with the free version. If you like it, upgrade to the £15 a month version. And just see if you can just integrate into your workflow once a day. And then if you're really enjoying using it, then maybe go out and look for some of these tools. But maybe start off with text-based stuff, and then, as you say, it's not that expensive then.
Okay, so if can I pick up from here? Is that the final section? I am pleased to announce that it has worked. So if I share my screen again, is that's visible now, is it?
Yep.
So I have been using a tool called crisp.ai, for which I do pay. It's £12 a month, this one. But there are lots of others like this. And this has been recording the call that we've just been having over the last 42 minutes. And it has been transcribing that call. And so it has produced, up until the point where I left a few minutes ago, a complete transcript of the call, which you can see here on the screen. And you can also see it's picked up the participants. So it knows who Andrew is because he's been on calls with this before. It knows who I am, but it doesn't know, I imagine, who Mel is. And there's two speakers here who've joined in. So if we look here at the notes that it's produced, this is just a raw transcript. This is just literally exactly what has been said, well, in theory. So Mel said, "Good morning, everybody," on this quite dull and dreary Tuesday morning. But I've got Tom Davenport, Andrew Lavelle, odd spelling there, even though it knows who Andrew is, who are the co-MDS for VIOS. Right. Well, obviously that's wrong. We're the co-managing directors of Alvius, but that's an understandable error. I'm going to hand over to Tom. Blah blah blah. So, and then it calls us Elvius later on in this paragraph. So broadly speaking, it's accurate. I mean, a lot of calls are quite. This is an ideal call for a transcript AI because it's just one person speaking at any one time. There's no interruption, and the structure is relatively clear. And I hope we're speaking in broadly full sentences. Obviously, this can get very jumbled indeed when it's an actual dialogue and you've got loads of people jumping in and out. So it gets less and less perfect the more people you have interacting on the call. In fact, amazingly, it doesn't know what ChatGPT is. Sounds like a sort of British version of ChatGPT. Anyway, so that's that. But the really exciting bit, of course, is that I can then summarize this. So I press summarize because I don't want to be dealing with massive transcripts. And it is now preparing a summary for me. Now, in a normal meeting, this summary might include, of course, we don't have actions here, but it might include a series of action points, which is often very helpful. So you can literally during the meeting just say, okay, that's an action, record that AI, please. And it will understand what it is that you're saying. Or if there's any other kind of structure you want to work to, you could like spell it out verbally, and that will then be recorded for you. So here we have a summary of the gist of the meeting, which is a series of elements that were discussed and points that have been made, the price of AI and so on. Action items, there were no action items, that makes sense. And then summary of each of the sections. So the attendees, the tools, ChatGPT, which is spelled correctly this time, Q&A, then practical versus theoretical, about uploading documents, summarization, all the sections that Andrew took us through, and then on to beautiful.ai, and didn't spell that correctly, but the music generation AI, and then the call ended. So that's really helpful. And then of course I can pick that up. In fact, I can just pick that up by doing copy all. And I've got here ChatGPT 3, just so you can see what it looks like, very similar to 4, but slightly less powerful. And I can say, please summarize this in 3 sentences and put it into an email for me to send to colleagues summarizing what happened. I enter that there, and then it will produce at the bottom, here we are, subject, recap of AI tools discussion, highlights and key takeaways. Hi team, I hope this finds you well, blah, 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 blah. This is the summary of the meeting that took place, the gist, and then a summary of the discussion. Andrew highlighted this, notable features of ChatGPT 4 with this, blah, blah, blah. Feel free to reach out. Best regards, your name. Copy, paste, whack it into an email, change the details, and there we have a summary of what's just happened. There we are. We are at the end of the webinar. Are there any questions? I think probably not at this stage.
No, I think we've answered the questions if we've been going along. That was extremely interesting, and to a novice like myself, yeah, it's just amazing. It was for those of you who didn't attend the last Leadership and Innovation event that we had at LinkedIn, and Tom was on the panel. I think the general summary of that meeting around when the conversation went to AI was that it's not something to be scared of. It can only make things better and improve things. And I can see the time saving in some of what you've just shown us is phenomenal. And Andrew, when he said, he was almost talking about me when he said it's really difficult sometimes to just start something, but it's much easier to critique something that's already been produced. So just to start with a blank piece of paper, and then something creates something for you then to work with, I think is phenomenal. So yeah, lots of comments to you and Andrew. Fantastic session, really interesting. Thank you so much. So yeah, well done, guys. Thanks for that very brief insight, but yeah, lots. I agree, Oliver, loads of takeaways there. Yeah, really interesting, Tom.
Thank you all. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate the very good turnout. Thank you for that. Wonderful. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks everybody.